Awesome. Hello, hello, hello. This is Kathy with Limitless Women Rising, and 2020 has been quite a year. But here comes 2021. And one of the things I've heard so much is that we kind of had the brain drain going on and kind of lost our way. A lot of shift, a lot of change is happening. And so to get us back on track, I brought a special, sparkly soul sister friend here to speak with us today. Suzanne Castle she's like a possibility maker. I'm going to have her share your story about coming from being a performer into consulting, but you had an interesting stopover. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how this evolution came to be?
I would love to, Kathy. Thank you for having me. And I love that you said possibility thinking. I just want you to follow me around and use that when people are introducing me. Thank you so much. You're very generous. So, yes, I was a professional ballerina and actress in my early days, and a family tragedy kind of shifted what I needed to do. And from that, I decided one day I think I should go to seminary. And so I spent 3.5 years in a seminary really studying the role of art in worship and how we live out as our in kind of soulful ways, art through worshiping activities, through ritual, which is I do a whole lot of work in that even now. I kind of think about everything in rituals. And then from that, I began to speak and do a lot of consulting with nonprofits. And I think I told you from Broadway to the boardroom, I help companies and people really imagine different ways of showing up in the world, especially when they're stuck. And so it's been quite a journey. I tell people often I've lived several lifetimes already.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It sounds like it. What a magical time. I think I had those days like in my teens when I thought I wanted to become a nun. So
Yes.
you got to live that.
I did. Yes, very much so.
Awesomeness. And I love the title that you're coming to us with because containing the chaos. There's
Yes,
been a lot of that this year. So
definitely.
just dive in, like help us to sort out like what chaos is. To me, I always think of chaos as the precursor to the next creation that's coming, like
Yes,
crumble away the old. So
right.
what do you do with that?
Well, I want to start with I kind of think as everybody's tuning in today that maybe you're feeling a little meh, or you're not feeling all that energy, all the cylinders firing the way they used to. Your zeal maybe has fizzled out a little bit. Maybe you're showing up today to this, you're feeling maybe burned out or frustrated, stressed out, overwhelmed. And if you're like most people right now, COVID's made everything harder. And it just feels like to me that the to-dos that we have don't ever get all the way crossed off.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happens, chaos just seems to find its way around us and trickle in. And what seems like not a major deal becomes a major deal because more things pile on and pile on. And so you try this and it doesn't work, and you try something else. And meanwhile, things keep piling up because nothing seems to be working. And for me, I kind of call that the chaos circus. And right now, I feel like the world is living in this kind of 3-ring COVID chaos circus. And it's just so difficult, I think, to sometimes find a way out. And so that's what I like to talk about, is that there's always a way. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, and you don't have to make huge major shifts in your life. Sometimes it's about attitude. And I think that is definitely, and I love that you talked about chaos theory, which really says that, through chaos is where creation happens. So it was in the dark and in the confusing that new things are born. And I really believe that about ourselves, that chaos might be a moment that really propels us into some greatness.
Yeah. And it's almost in that darkness, we've got to plug into some kind of faith. So I love how you were talking about during the seminary days of bringing in
Right.
that notion of rituals and practices that just keep us, I don't know, grounded or centered.
Yes. Yeah, and here's the thing. I think for most of us, we have things right in front of us every day that could make us deliriously happy in a hurry, that would get us control over our lives.
I love
maybe,
that. Deliriously
right?
happy. I'll have that, please.
Deliriously happy. Or maybe, show up as those glorious, sparkly, mojo making mavens that we are, right?
Yeah.
And it's just that sometimes we've got either a mindset block, We've got rituals or habits that aren't really serving us anymore. And it's really hard to kind of let those go, because letting things go sometimes is a death, and it creates some grief for us. But what happens is, if we're not capturing those things in the right way, our happiness suffers, our souls suffer, the loved ones we have around us suffer. And like I said, the pandemic has just brought everything to a greater height of awareness in these moments.
Yeah. And I like how you said how that trickles out around us. So that just the opposite, when we do begin to take that time for ourselves, it's almost like sometimes I think we women are waiting for somebody to give us permission to
Yes.
take the time to go within, find that what's important. And so I love, I'm going to spoiler alert, she's got a great giveaway that's going to help us
Yes.
find those priorities for ourselves, but really for us to get clear. And I think that's the greatest gift of this whole year. All the upside down, the topsy-turviness part of
Right.
it allowed us to get clear on what's essential for us and what's no longer essential. So,
Correct. Yes.
that self-care is trickles out then once we get centered and we nurture our souls and bring them alive. Like, now everybody
Yes.
benefits.
It's interesting. I was reading some work on happiness theory, and what scientists are telling us. And sorry if you can hear a little squeaky toy underneath my feet. It's my rescue dog that I just got, who's like trying to show up too. But the, uh, the statistic is something about that there's an approximate percentage of our happiness that's truly up to us, and that's 40%. And while that may not sound like a huge number, what it means is you really do have power over your life 40% of the time to be happy. So there's genetic factors, sure, and behaviors and life circumstances, but and we all have this kind of specific genetic set point for happiness. So kind of like we do for weight or hair color, but a big chunk of that is how we feel, and that is under our control, meaning, that the way that we're spending our time, what we're feeding our brain when we engage in media of any kind of form, like all the thoughts that linger in you really can impact your mood, your long-term happiness, and honestly, whether or not you've got control over your schedule and the mania that we find ourselves in the world today. And I just love reminding myself that, okay, 60% might be out of control and there's nothing I can do about it, but 40% is pretty great. And so what can I do to kind of up level and amp up that 40%?
Yeah. And so that's a great question. What can we do to up level and amp up?
Well, I think most of it's about attitude, right? You've already kind of shared that a little bit. I know your work is centered a lot around that too. And so the first thing I would say definitely is to be positive. So, well, and I don't want to discount when horrible, traumatic things happen. It's not that. But even when you're having a difficult time, I think it's really important that to kind of either find the lesson or to find the outcome to reset yourself. And so part of the work that I do is to help people make an effort to overlook negative aspects of situations, which means that you can't change what happened and your response at that time. But what you can do is you can decide from here on out how I'm going to respond, how much power or energy I'm going to allow that to do. There's a lot that's about positive thinking, and I really believe that positive thinking helps you go after your goals in a different way. So Kathy, I like to think of it like this. So consider the times that you've doubted your ability to do something. You talked earlier about, sometimes we're waiting on permission, right? So if you consider the times that you've doubted your ability to do something, how often were you able to succeed when you doubted yourself?
Ooh, it's less than
Right?
40.
Yeah, way less
5% of
than
the time,
40,
maybe,
right?
right?
Maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe 5%. And
Yeah.
because I think that when you're able to hold your head up and put your shoulders back and think positive regardless of the situation, then things come towards you in a different way, and it allows you to show up differently and begins to dispel those doubts. And we do that through reframing. I'm sure many of your listeners and people tuning in know about the process of reframing, which is just taking a negative thought and then turning it around. Because it's really easy right now, I know, for businesses and people to say, oh, well, COVID has made everything hard. And I find myself slipping into that too. Or, wow, what's wrong with my business that I have all these challenges and can't pivot, right? I feel like that's the word of 2020, like pivot. Or, COVID has made my life cursed or whatever. But if you play those thoughts over and over in your mind, they become believable and they make you doubt yourself.
Yeah.
So instead, what I find is when we change our point of view and to say, wow, COVID has been challenging and look what it has revealed. Like you talked about that a second ago. Or I'm spending more time at home. So I'm noticing that I want to spend more time at home. Or when the world opens back up, I want to be sure that I don't lose XYZ. Or, and so I think that there's just some subtle shifts that we can make with our mindset towards positivity that allows us to show up differently. For me, I really don't like the word problem
Mhm.
because problem has has to me a heavy quality to that word.
Yeah.
It just has a heavy quality. And so I like to redefine things with challenges
Mhm.
because that really says I'm going to take action. It enlivens me. It means I've got to show up every day. I'm very motivated by that. And so problem just is like dun dun dun, but if
I like
I think of the chaos as a challenge right now, then it's wow, I have to find a new way. I have to show up differently. I'm going to try new things. It's very permission giving rather than doubt giving.
Yeah, it's almost like you can focus on the aspect of creation that's within
Yes,
because of the chaos instead of like the word chaos sometimes can just make it sound like you're and I like how
correct.
you put the percentage on the happiness. It's almost feel like the word chaos you can focus on, the 80% that is out of control or just,
Yeah,
there's something being revealed here. So I love how you
right.
said the
Well,
takeaways.
and I would say that I think especially as women, we have to be about the nose
Mm.
if we want to get some control over how scattered we are. And I really mean that. I mean, I speak about the nose a lot, and I always get the groan or I get the little hee hee hee. But I think a lot of our circus-like atmosphere is because we're so used to saying yes as women. And instead of overcommitting ourselves, we should be saying the word no. No is a really powerful word. But most people put meetings on their calendar, right? And they don't put anything else on their calendar. And I think that this is a mistake because when you're not putting everything down, and I mean everything down, it's unscheduled time and it makes it easier to then say yes because you're susceptible to be like, oh, I have all this time, and you miscalculate how much energy you might have. And so really saying no for me means I'm saying no to unscheduled time. So I'm going to deliberately prioritize who I'm going to spend time with, how I'm going to spend my time, what I'm going to spend my time on. And it really kind of allows me to accomplish things and really begins to take that chaos and order it differently, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things I would ask people that are tuning in right now is for example, if a productive week to you means you have to finish some report, right? Then I would say it's not just the report is due on the calendar. You actually have to calendar time that says I'm going to work on the report in 1 hour segments or whatever, works best for you. And if being more efficient means you have to learn a new software or a new program or whatever, then you've got to put calendar time to learn that, not just this to-do list of I need to learn a new software. I would say take your to-dos and make sure that they're calendared appropriate because then you'll see where your holes are for self-care, how you're not showing up in the way that you want to. And let's face it, women, good Lord, we need to say no and we need to be about self-care. We
I love
just
that.
do.
It's such a game changer. It really is, and I've been guilty of it myself of just not scheduling out the things that are for me. I've got my morning time. It's like my morning sanctuary. That's
Right.
non-negotiable. But after that, just like you're saying, all too often, then we just become just at the whim of other people's desires, and then we find
Yes.
ourselves with no time.
Correct. And I think sometimes it's about that magical feeling that we get when we say yes to something. It makes us feel good on the inside, right? We're servants, we like to help people, women are helpers, but it really does kill our chance to be productive and successful. And so I would advocate, so besides being positive, I would say learn to say no if you want to get your mojo back. And you need to make sure it's part of your regular vocabulary for sure.
Yeah. And say no, then you're just saying no. I like your sentence there of saying no to unscheduled time.
Yep.
Like, no, this is my time. And
Right.
how about Friday night, Saturday morning, something
Exactly.
else.
Yeah,
So
and yeah, really break that down. So I try to use a form because I don't like to feel guilty, and I struggle with that. I want to do all the things, and I always want to be the yes person. So I had to construct a formula for my own self how to say no and not feel guilty when an opportunity comes up or a friend wants to do something and I'm looking at my calendar and there's no space there, right? So my formula is be honest, be brief, and then offer a reason why. So, but one of my favorite examples is I can't commit to this because I have other priorities at the moment. It's vague enough, it's still honest. People might say, "Well, what is your priority right now?" Great, I'm working on this project. Oh, I know someone who could help you. Or even, "Great, gosh, I didn't know you had that going on. Would Sunday be better?" And it allows a conversation to happen instead of, "Wow, she's a horrible person. She doesn't want to do this or that," or, yeah. So I really think if you can be honest, if you can be brief and offer a reason why, it doesn't feel so yucky to say no.
yeah, yeah, that's great. That's a super tip. And then the other notion that I wanted to tease out of there is that we were talking about the circus, but I think we
Yes.
do that to ourselves because we're trying to multitask. And
Yeah.
I'm leaning into the practice of doing, like, I'm calling them like 25-minute sprints of that
Right.
one thing. And dang, it's amazing how undisciplined a brain can be. But
Right.
the COVID, I think, has really stirred that up.
Well, and I've done a lot of work on monotasking and really allowing yourself a chance to explore all the things about a project or a person or feelings, whatever it is. But when the I think the science says something like every time you get an email notification or a text notification, it takes your brain up to 12 minutes to get back to where it was before that came in.
Yeah,
And
so
so, a good balance hack is your machines, this thing right here should not control you. Like you're the human, you control this. And
you're
and
the
you
smart one.
right? You get to decide if you have notifications on or off.
You're right.
You get to decide when you answer emails. You get to decide how and when you reply to people. And just because something came in, everything isn't urgent all of the time, but I think we have been living life as if every moment is urgent, which is why our souls are sick. We've got a lot of illness in the world. We've got adrenal fatigue. We're tired all the time. We've got stress bellies happening. I mean, I think it's a product of living at that heightened sense of urgency all the time, which honestly, these things make everything worse in that. And so if you want to get some balance back, I would say figure out what works for you. And everybody's different. So I can't say,
Right.
if you want your sparkly mojo, can't stop my moxie greatness to happen, then you must follow Suzanne's plan. No, Suzanne's plan works for Suzanne, and I'm a crazy person. And so it only works for me, right? But when you get off track, you have to figure out a way to get back on track. And so if you need to check email once an hour because that makes you feel good, great. For me, I check it 3 times a day. And I find that most people are okay with that, and we don't, I think we forget that most people don't expect
Yeah.
a reply right away unless they say this is time sensitive. And maybe you need to teach people in your world if something is time sensitive to pick up the phone, right? Pick up the phone. If it's urgent and time sensitive, call me, right? Because then
Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah, it is interesting how many people expect that you're checking the emails all the time. But I love
Yes.
that. And I like the word, did you call it monovision of focusing?
Oh, monotasking instead of
Monotasking. So,
instead of
and then I like your
multitasking.
word mojo. So maybe we could
Yeah.
call it mojo tasking.
There you go. Yes, I love that. I
I
love
do
that very
too.
much. That's great. Yes.
Awesome. So, you mentioned that you've got your own, like, what are some of your other practices to keep you on your mojo?
Well, I think I like to start my day. Let me set this up differently. So I think a lot of us, we're all about the mindset shifts, and maybe we've identified priorities. We can talk about that if we need to. We've begun to kind of take control of our schedule, right? We're saying no to things. We're doing all of that, right? That workbook that's coming your way is going to help you do all those things. Those of you listening, if you're not sure about those, but I think we start our days with like this really long, I'm old school. I use pen and paper, but to-do list of things, right? And we cross them off, and there's some science that says that that's a good thing to do, like it gives you a sense of accomplishment. But what happens is we start off with 10 items on our to-do list, right?
Yeah.
and we want to accomplish them all, but then we don't get to them all. And so actually what happens is when you see that it's not crossed off, really and truly, there's self-judgment that happens in your brain. You may not be judging yourself, but your brain automatically does. And then it begins to shut like some of your neurons down, which makes you less productive. And then if you're like most people, you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to move that over to tomorrow's to-do list. So now you have those 10 things plus the things that you really do have to get done on the next day, and just the list keeps getting longer and longer and longer. So what I have done is I start every day asking myself only 2 questions. And this might feel scary, so just, breathe, put your shoulders back. It's okay. It's taken me a long time to get to this place. But the first question is, what could I do today that would bring me a sense of meaning and purpose?
Sweet.
And I really anchor into that because it's about fulfillment and it's about well-being. And that's the first and most important question. So it could be that what I need to do today is to finish a project, or to, clean my house, or I need to go drop food off at a friend's. I mean, whatever it is, but it has to bring a sense of meaning and purpose. Okay. So once I've anchored into that, then I ask myself, now what are the 2 most important things that I could do today that would have the greatest impact? So, because those things are about the actual mattering of things, not just the surface things.
Yeah.
So, right?
We can overfill our calendar with all the to-do tasks.
Right.
And never really
Right.
hit the heart of the matter. I love how you're talking right to the soul. This is
Yes.
what light us up.
Yes. Yeah. And so if the most important thing is to clean out my email today, and then that's and that would give me a sense of meaning and purpose because I got it accomplished. I'm done. Wham, bam, awesome, right? But then the secondary part of that is the 2 most important things I could do today might be that I make sure that I've got food ready to go, so me and my daughter could sit down and watch the Umbrella Academy, and without feeling like I didn't get everything done. And instead of being present, I've got all the little oh my goshness happening in my brain, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I start my day like that, and then I order my day based on my answers to those questions. And it literally, I can't tell you, Kathy, how much it's revolutionized the way that I show up in the world, from frantic to much more settled and present person that I am today.
Yeah, and on purpose. So tell us
Right.
about the brain. Like it doesn't like it's got the tickies of judgment. And I like how
Yes.
you said it. We're not even aware that we're judging
Right.
it, but it's happening in here and it's real. And then the opposite happens when we actually do check off. Like, we are wired for progress towards something that's meaningful for us. And it doesn't matter how fast that is, but if you can create a chunk that's achievable in that day, your brain's doing just the opposite. It's like doing the happy dance back there.
That's right. That's right. And so I think there's really some simple things that we could do. And the first one I would say, and we already talked about this, but would be a slow down for self-care. So just slow down for self-care. Because it doesn't, like you just said, going faster doesn't mean you're more productive or that you're accomplishing more things. It just doesn't. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and it seems like you're running in circles, sometimes the best thing that you can do is just to slow down and stop.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really like how you tied it back into what happens within the body when we're on the stress and overwhelm.
Right.
And like you said, the anything from the bloat to in our belly,
Yeah,
all the inflammation,
exactly.
that's the precursor to all kinds of pains and aches and chronic goodness, ungoodness.
Right.
Yeah. So stop it.
Yeah, just stop. So definitely slow down. And if you haven't communicated what you're trying to do in the world to friends or family, then I would say it's really important that you take time to communicate that so they can support your endeavor and even maybe remind you to stop if they need to, But then I would say I think we get on the procrastination train a lot in our little circus, right? So there's things that we don't want to do, so we put them off, and so I do that too. But what I've started doing is scheduling an afternoon to do all the pesky things, right? So I have my pesky afternoon time, and in my schedule it literally says pesky things, right? And so it's all the things that have been hanging over me, right? And because it helps me kind of stay out of that circus tent atmosphere. And then once you've kind of done that, I think you'll begin to see where things are too complicated. So from there you can start to simplify things, because we we like to make extra work for ourselves, even if it's unnecessary, right? So I don't always have to create a new process or a new worksheet or come up with this or that tool. Or, sometimes it's I've got to use grocery delivery because it's the best thing for me.
Yeah.
And so, hiring help or, getting someone to come alongside me so that I can simplify what I do and show up as a better human is a great thing to do for your mindset, for your soul, everything. Yeah.
I just like how you said that. I show up as a better human. Like,
Yes.
wouldn't that be a great resolution for all of us this year? What if we
Yes.
just showed up as better humans?
Yes. Be a better human. It's actually not that hard, So, yeah.
With some great questions that come along with that. Awesome. Yeah. So is there more? I'm just loving this. And again, is some of this covered in the freebie that you're
Yeah, I know we've chatted so much about like attitude shifts and scheduling and saying no's and all those kinds of things. And so I thought it'd be better if we just kind of put a workbook together, so that you don't stay stuck, because I don't want anyone to be stuck anymore, right? So, and these are just a couple of nuggets. So here's what that workbook is. I think it's called Contain the Chaos, totally free. And what's inside are really some quick action steps, Kathy, that really are doable. So they're easy, they're doable, they're little bite sized. So you can start as soon as you open it up. And it really is a way for you to begin to connect differently at the end of 2020 so that you will jam into your January, right?
January
And
jam.
right. And your mojo won't be out of whack anymore. And so, but what I would say is, whatever you do, whoever you are at this moment in time, I really do have a wish for all of you. And that is that you would not let the circus world that we're finding ourselves living in right now dictate how you're going to show up in all your sparkly wonder.
Yeah.
So it's easy to stay on that overwhelmed merry-go-round and just to stay stuck there. I totally get it. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be an energy suck. And I believe that you can build a life of joy if you just stop a little bit and take some stock of where you are and say, I refuse to live this way anymore, and I'm going to recapture my magic mojo.
Yeah. And what makes me sparkle? If we just add that question
Right.
for our day, just give yourself that extra 17 seconds to attend to
Yeah.
your vibration. So you show up
Right.
as a better human.
Yep.
I'm gonna
Yep.
that'll be my new post-it note up on the
Yay! Yay! That's great.
yeah. Yeah. So and now, like, when you also work with companies and you're consulting and things like that, so when you're
I
working
do.
with the teams, is it the same kind of dynamic that you're taking them through?
Yes, because here's what happens, right? Whatever, I as a strategist in the world, whatever's going on with us internally, personally, is affecting us out in the world on whatever you do for work, right? Whatever it is. And whatever's going on at work, you're bringing it home and you're manifesting it at home. And so holistically, you need to look at all of that. If you've got kind of like a stuckiness happening at work, I would say, all right, we're going to start here. We're going to start with, let's get control of our schedules. Like, that's what we do first. We're going to start asking ourselves better questions, because when you start showing up better, you work better. And then from there, we really work on culture shifts. Like, how can you be a more joyful culture at work? How can you get control of meetings? How can you communicate at a higher, more dynamic level that elevates people rather than stomps them down? So yeah, it's the same principles, and I really believe that it all starts, inside, and you've got to do the internal work to survive. I really believe that.
Yeah. And I just love that. And you're sitting in front of the mirror, so that helps. Everything
I don't. Other way.
Yeah.
I totally forget. I'm in my dining room today, so yes, yeah. There's a big old mirror. Yeah. You gotta look and reflect what you want.
Yeah. And that everything outside is reflecting, it's an opportunity. So if we're not liking what's happening out there, just ask the question within of what's
Correct.
being revealed here.
Yes.
So that's really cool. And I like how you said how they learn to communicate in a way that uplifts one another too.
Yeah.
I think, there's so many cool little aspects of the pandemic, the wearing the masks in order to help, respect other people, even if you're not,
Correct.
the mask lady kind of a thing. But for us to think about how our communication, how our sparkle or lack of sparkle is really impacting other people's attitudes, the way they're showing up. And then, as you said, it all brings it back to how it's showing up in our body too.
Yes,
Um,
yes, it does. And so, when all you have to do is think about when someone's gone through a tragedy, how their work suffers, how it looks different, right? And we're all suffering. Like the pandemic is worming its way inside of us in lots of different ways. And people, I think I hear over and over, wow, this pandemic has brought out XYZ in this person, right? Or I didn't know this is the way that this person deals with stress and trauma, and everything's elevated. And so I think it's true to say if you're feeling out of control in your life at home, you're probably out of control at work as well. And so this is very symbiotic. And until we figure that out, that we are, that we are part and connected in nature and in everything that we do, it's just going to keep feeling chaotic.
yeah. And to go ahead, find the cause of that, address, and then align, as you were saying, with the soul. What's the soul really asking for here?
Right,
It's an
right.
opportunity for us to shut
Yeah,
off the things that just aren't in alignment. I think as women, we're so good at showing up the way we think other people need us to, because we're such the caretakers, or we take
right.
on everybody else's stuff because we're strong, we know we can do it, and that's a
Yep,
way of showing love. And it's like, yeah, not so much anymore. We can give that down
right.
and still be present for somebody else, but
Correct.
also, go for it all.
Yes. And it's interesting. I last week during Thanksgiving, we're doing this after Thanksgiving, and I had someone on LinkedIn send me a connection request and didn't know this person. That's fine, that's what it's about. And but kept like I had a new notification every couple hours, and finally this person said to me, I think it was like Thanksgiving Day, I don't understand why you're not answering my connection requests. I really would like to get on your calendar. And so I finally was like, okay. So I just responded, which I wasn't going to be doing that, but it kept popping up on my phone. And so I responded and said, it's Thanksgiving week, and I have intentionally taken time to be with my family. And I am happy to look at all of this as soon as I get back next week. And then he backed off, but he was in the office or doing what he needed to do. And I think that as women, we forget that we have the power of words and making a boundary and sharing that, what, I'm in this bucket right now. I'm in family bucket mode, right? And so this work bucket's gonna stay over here and it's gonna be okay. Like nothing burned down. I still have people showing up for me. I didn't even know this person. It's really okay to say, I'm gonna have a better boundary about this person, right?
Yeah,
So
it was so beautiful the way you said it. I'm honoring this time with my family. This is
right.
my priority. And what if we can shift that around? If we don't do it for ourselves, what if we take on the role of modeling that so other women can choose the same?
Exactly.
So let's all be the leader and start with those beautiful boundaries. I like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. My daughter's 16, and she's going to be popping in any second. You're going to hear the door open and close, and she has started caring to her friends, saying, "You know what? I turn my phone off at 9 o'clock. Like that's on her. That's not a rule." She's like,
Wow.
"Because I'm going to set myself up for the rest of the night, and I want to get good sleep, and I will be back with you after 7 in the morning." And because she's been watching me do some of these things, and she said, "That's I can show this that it's okay to my friends too." And it's really interesting. Everybody's watching you all the time. Be consistent.
Yeah.
So
Wow. That's so powerful. That is so cool that you got a kiddo doing that.
yeah,
Awesome. Super great. Well, goodness, this has been just chock full of all kinds of goodness. And I know the goodness
terrific.
continues. If all the contact information will be below the video,
Yeah,
so they'll know how to sign up and get the giveaway that
yeah,
is perfectly timed for right now as we're heading into 2021, looking for our mojo and a little bit of focus and prioritizing ourselves. So is there anything else that you'd like to just put out there to wrap things up?
Well, what I would say is the holidays are upon us, and everyone wants your time. And even if you're walking into January and you're feeling frazzled and you're feeling like you didn't get it all figured out, then what I would say is just stop. Maybe take a day off, go to the spa. If you can't go to the spa, maybe take a walk in a park. And begin to just reset and remind yourself how you want to show up. And I would encourage you to make the decision to not be a frantic person in 2021, but to be a present person. And that one subtle shift, I think, will make the biggest difference in your life and in your business.
Yeah. So many wonderful tips. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
As a
thank you for having
candidate.
me, Kathy. Thank you so very much. You've been so generous with your time.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I know there's going to be some better humans out there because of this
I hope
conversation.
so.
Awesomeness. Again, thanks.